The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has just announced a 94% increase on the frequency of sabotage of its oil-bearing pipelines across the Federation, mainly in the Niger Delta region. NNPC says 68 new points of attack were discovered for the month of November 2019. Provision of security for these installations has over the years become a sensitive political matter, which on its own continues to add to a growing perception of corruption surrounding the State Oil Corporation. For a comprehensive discussion on this problem, we're now being joined by Bristol-Alagbariya Emmanuel, an environmental activist and former National Secretary of the Ijaw Youth Council, which is a powerful socio-cultural group representing the Ijaw ethnic nationality in the Niger Delta. We'll also be looking at the ongoing dislocation of people as a result of oil pollution, as well as unemployment, which has been identified as a major contributor to youth restiveness in the region. Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, good morning.
Bristol, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we've been on this subject of pipeline vandalism on this program for a while.
Yes.
You will probably be in the last month,
yes.
the fourth guest that we're having on this program.
Okay.
And the official position by the NNPC is that what we're dealing with is clearly a case of criminality on the path of either youth or elders, who violate the integrity of pipelines, and that, the concerted effort should be to check this criminality. Although from the other side, people say, well, government in finding a solution to the challenge is displacing people and engaging in summary punishment and evictions from communities along the pipeline route. You as a former secretary of the Ijaw Youth Council, what's your perspective? What do you think we're really dealing with? Is this really criminality? Because really, violation of pipelines is a clear case of economic sabotage. And why do youths from the Niger Delta and persons from there complain when government wheels the big stick and says, you cannot steal Nigeria's oil?
Okay, well, I would say that it's also, they are related. We have multiple situations that we're dealing with. We have the act of criminality, and we have the act of corruption. NNPC, they've not been able to declare the accurate amount of oil that is being sold out of the country, and also the one that is drilled.
So is that a justification for stealing oil?
No. What I'm saying that they should be held responsible, because most of those attacks, they are instigated by people from NNPC to justify the unaccounted crude Nigerians have been asking them to declare. To justify. Because now, since they can't declare appropriately the crude that is being exported, they create justification by masterminding some of this sabotage, so that they will now tie to the community and the people that they are involved, and it is as a result of this sabotage. Yeah. So, apart from that too, the communities, due to the absence of integrating the community to these oil activities and the huge poverty there, people from outside come in, work with the locals. Because this community don't have the expertise to carefully open this pipeline. People from the oil companies work with them. Our military men, as of today, our military men, they are massively involved in oil theft in the Niger Delta. I'm giving you facts. So that's what I'm saying, that is a multi-dimensional situation that we're dealing with. You cannot excuse the community from it. A part of it. NNPC, they're equally part of it. The military, they're part of it. The politicians from Abuja, they're part of it. They own most of those vessels that comes to buy this oil from the community. When you create incentives then you see that people will massively go into it. If they don't have way to sell, they will not go and steal.
So there's a whole chain. I was going to ask you if there's a role of the community, but you've answered that question. Your perspective is similar to that of the Oba of Lagos in response to the latest disaster in Lagos where people lost their lives. He said that it is the NNPC and security agencies that we should be looking at because the people do lack even the boldness to go and vandalize oil pipelines, much less the technical know-how. But my question now is, how do we stop this hemorrhage? Because what we're losing as a nation is running into billions, our entire foreign reserve, and people are losing as individuals their lives.
Well, the only way to curb this act of sabotage is for them to allow the community to participate. I tell them that you cannot sideline the community completely, and you want them to protect the pipeline for the government. Because one, it's a known fact that it's only the community, the stakeholders that are directly affected by the activities in that environment that can protect these oil investments. You cannot involve them as pipeline security contractors. It does not follow at all. We must be fair to ourselves. And you know, there are certain things we do that ridicule this company, that ridicule this country before the international community. It's an irony. Even now, like for instance, I'm in Lagos now. A friend of mine saw me at the airport, said, Bristol, how are you? That you're the ones eating the oil money. I don't have any business there in the oil industry. You understand? It pains me that when they see me, they feel I'm benefiting, but I'm not benefiting. So we must go back to the drawing board. And, you know, now, one thing we must equally do, like I started Enough is Enough campaign against sea pirates attacks and all the rest. And we realized that the government don't even have concern for the lives of the people. Sea pirates, most of those pirates are also involved in these oil thefts. The government were not concerned. All they concentrate their attention on is just only on the pipeline to see that the pipelines are not vandalized. So we are proposing, that's what we're calling for, the Niger Delta Waterways National Security Summit, so that we can come and discuss and profile a solution that will protect the pipeline and the waterways. Because even when they steal this oil, they take it through the sea route away from the country or to other parts of the country. So we're proposing Coastal Guard, Niger Delta Coastal Guard, as also a form of regional security, just as we have the Omotokun in Lagos. Amotekun. Sorry, pardon me. So we're equally proposing the Niger Delta Coastal Guard. That alone will employ thousands of people. The communities will be involved. And you know, these oil companies, even when they come, they carry out their EIA report or their EIA report. They don't look at the security component of this report. Even when they look at the security component, they only apply the security component to themselves to protect their facilities.
Sorry, I just want to say EIA is Environmental Impact Assessment. Sorry, for our viewers.
Yes. So they only apply, they don't look at the security component as it affects the community. They don't look at the security component, they prefer solution to protect themselves alone. Whereas the communities are equally exposed. It is as a result of this vandalization that sometimes the military men and the communities, they do have clash. They come and invade and destroy communities, things which to our own position is unprofessional and nothing is being said about those things. So
let's for a second stick on the point of the Niger Delta Coastal Guards that you just brought up, because that does sound in theory like quite a sustainable solution. It sounds like a way to revive the community, give people jobs, etc. Let's speak about it in practice as well. What's to say that an initiative like this can't also be compromised? I mean, there's so many... And it's different, right? But there's so many amnesty programs that have tried and failed and have been compromised. What is to say that an initiative like this is actually going to work? And in practice, how do you really see this playing out?
Okay, let me deviate a little, because you mentioned the amnesty program. The amnesty program failed and is still failing and it will continue to fail because the federal government, they are not being fair to the people. The idea of this amnesty was to enable these people from the creeks that bear arms to come and involve themselves in the developmental process. And now these guys, they've given up their arms, they've granted them amnesty, they've been rehabilitated, they've been trained, but till date, most of them have not been gainfully employed. They don't have anything to do. They live on the stipend, 65,000 naira, of which, in my own opinion, is not good. Somebody must work to earn money. You don't give free money to people like that because it will make them to be lazy. Then, the federal government, the complete package of this amnesty program was that after the disarmament...
Hold your thoughts for just a minute. Let's go on a very quick commercial break, and when we're back, the conversation continues. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Bristol-Alagbariya Emmanuel, an environmental activist and also the former National Secretary of the Ijaw Youth Council, is here with us on the program today. And before we went on a break, we were speaking about this idea of the Niger Delta Coastal Guards that you're proposing. And I was asking you about how it can work in practice. You were saying. Okay,
the Coastal Guard, one, it's going to work, and that's the most dependable system of security that we should employ to safeguard the coastal environment and then the routes. Because one, every community, they know what happens and they're also familiar with their environment. Even if you're working with our conventional security system, you bring somebody from Kaduna down there, probably a naval officer, he doesn't even know the terrain, and they still work with the community people in their boats. They still secure the service of the community people. We're saying that why don't you give them the responsibilities? So that one, the amount of cash they spend on the regular security will reduce. It will get back to the community people. Now, that Coastal Guard, there will be intelligence sharing one community to another, because if something happens here, you have to pass from one community to another community before you escape. So now, immediately they can arrest those criminals in terms of oil activities, in terms of fighting against sea pirates and any form of criminality along the waterways. So we're still working on it, and we still have to call on our governors to buy into it. That's why in that conference, by God's grace, April, May, the Niger Delta Waterways National Security Summit, where people can come and discuss and look at this thing and work on it and see how it can be applied just as we have in other regions. Then, before we went on break, I talked about the amnesty program. This amnesty program, the first phase, we have achieved it. There is absolute peace, apart from some criminals that are, in every society we have criminals that are still there. The next phase that should have concentrated on development, the federal government, they've shied away from it. They don't want to go into the next phase. All they're doing is to continue to bribe people, bribe these former militants by giving them stipends. But they're just a handful of persons involved. The people that bears the burden are the community people. And sometimes even some of these criminals that benefit from this amnesty program, they are not from communities where you have the oil activities at all. But as a result of association, friends, they got involved in the creeks, and now you're paying them. And the communities that the federal government should have concentrated on are not being taken care of. And we also have a system where companies will come to our environment, they will pay community money for land, acquire their land, and start their project or their programs. I am suggesting that why don't they see how they can involve this community, allowing them bring in their land as an equity share in this investment, so that if the company makes profit, the community makes profit. Well, you understand me? Bristol. Everybody can protect the business, but when you sideline them completely, you see them as spectators. Definitely they will want to sabotage your business because you cannot satisfy them.
Well, Bristol, with due respect, I don't agree with you that the amnesty program has failed. Okay. The amnesty program was introduced in 2009 by President Umaru Yar'Adua, sustained by President Jonathan, and also sustained by President Muhammadu Buhari, leading to the creation of the Office of the Amnesty Program and the Office of a Special Advisor, most of whom have come from the Niger Delta, and also the creation of the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. Yes. It's not supposed to be a permanent program.
Thank you.
It's supposed to be a peace-building, de-radicalization, empowerment program.
Yes.
And as of today, over 30,000 ex-militants have participated in it. Many of these militants, at least running into thousands, have been sent for training in Europe, particularly Germany, and in Africa, in Namibia, and many of them have graduated. They've been empowered as part of the capacity building process. Yes. But I think the major problem that we have is that many of these militants and other youths in the Niger Delta see the amnesty program as a rent collection initiative, as an entitlement program. Exactly. And many of them just want to stay on it permanently. As for development that you talked about, that is part of the mandate of the Niger Delta Development Commission. And there are issues with that also. So I don't agree with your criticism. No. I'm not necessarily speaking for government. No, I'm just giving information.
I'm saying that, it's a full package. For now, this amnesty program shouldn't continue till this time.
Because it's been used
there
for
There will be a cut-off point.
When?
It's not a permanent thing.
I want to tell you today that if they try to do that, they'll experience an upsurge in criminality in the region.
Well, then the problem will be the greed
if it was
of the youth of the Niger Delta, not the insensitivity of government.
If it was designed to succeed, success has to do with timing. So that is why I said that it has failed, because the initiative was a laudable one. Applying it, since the government were insincere and they're still insincere till this time. I'm not particular about this government. I'm saying that the government from time. You understand me? The initiative was a good one. To my own perception, by now, even if they want to train people, the name should not be amnesty program. By now, that amnesty program should have stopped. Then we cannot have another program that should talk about training. The amnesty was concentrated on ex-agitators. And we cannot sustain, because for now we don't have ex-agitators, arm-bearing agitators again now. We don't have them again now, so to speak. So that amnesty, the name amnesty program, should have ended. Then let us start a new phase of program. Anyway, even if it's to concentrate on capacity building, but not with that name, amnesty program. It has stayed for too long.
Anyway, the question I was going to ask you, when you talked about Niger Delta Coastal Guards, yes, which will be like Hamotekun, yes, and maybe Operation Shege Kafasa,
yes,
you were using the phrase we are proposing this, a summit, we are proposing this. Who are the people referred to as we? Is it the Ijaw Youth Council, or just a group like the coalition of northern groups that has been rejected by leaders of the North and the governors? And if you are going to engage the governors, what's the process? What's the mechanism you have in place? And how confident are you that the governors of the Niger Delta will buy into this proposal?
Well, actually, it's a wake-up call. It's a voluntary service. We're doing it under the auspices of New Age Initiative.
You said?
New Age Initiative. New Age Initiative.
What is that all about?
It's
an NGO?
Yeah, an NGO. You understand? A youth group coming together, young people coming together, because we're sick and tired. Just like what we face as Nigerians. When you travel out of the country, they see you as a black, a potential criminal, as if you're bearing drugs and all the rest. So when we leave the Niger Delta, they see us as militants and all the rest. We're not comfortable. So we're now trying to see that how do we also contribute our own quota. But there must be discussion. There must be discussion. So we're proposing this conference as the first step. We're also inviting the governors, resource persons, youth groups, let us come and discuss. Eventually, we don't have the power to implement it. It will go back to the government. We intend to also engage our representatives at the National Assembly. We intend to also engage our State House Assembly across the Niger Delta states, that they should look in this direction, the Niger Delta Coastal Guard, to protect that corridor, that water corridor, so that it will reduce the level of criminality. Now, I'm also...
Are you saying that the Navy has not done a good job of protecting our territorial waters?
Okay, I want to tell you again, in your program here yesterday, Brutai said that it is not their duty to take charge of internal security. It lies in the hands of the regular police. That both the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. Yesterday he said it clearly. So you cannot outrightly.
But the
when
maritime,
it has to do,
territory is not for the police, is it?
No, when it has to do with the inland waterways,
okay,
inland waterways, it should be with the responsibility of the police and the Marine Department of Nigerian Police. But for now, they have equally shown that they're overwhelmed. That is why the community wants to come in. And the budget for security is too huge that if that could be deployed down to the community, it will help in reducing crime. The best form of security is an atmosphere of peace where people are integrated, where people are gainfully employed. You cannot continue to increase your budgets when it has to do with internal security. It is not good. We should look at a peace process, and the peace process is that people must be gainfully employed. People must be educated, or else we'll still experience this insecurity.
You must be aware that there have been bills proposing a National Coast Guard presented in the National Assembly that have been rejected in the past. So how do you plan to surmount this? And secondly, there's been a letter written by 16 NGOs from across the Niger Delta saying that the Interim Management Committee of the NDDC is fostering disunity and mistrust in the Niger Delta. So is this the right timing to try and introduce the regional body that you are describing?
Well, this is the right time because there's an atmosphere of regions trying to put up their security initiatives to protect themselves. Though ordinarily, if our conventional security agencies were up and doing, there wouldn't have been any need for even the Amotekun. But now, for the fact that we have to protect ourselves, people are looking for a way to support the security. The Interim Management Board of NDDC, I want to say that the federal government should, as a matter of urgency, finish the auditing process and bring in a formidable management that will develop the region. Because NDDC has a critical role to play. The Niger Delta Ministry has very important role to play. Do you know that the East-West Road today, and as I speak to you, has gone completely bad? And it's also along this road that the tankers, they still like taking petroleum products from here to other regions. The federal government must be proactive. They shouldn't wait for the people to complain. And you know, I also will not blame them 100% because they are working with some collaborators in the region. Mostly politics has done a great damage to us because now that air of loyalty, some persons are loyal stupidly, even when they should speak truth to power, to tell them that for government to succeed, it means that there must be projects and programs that people can point fingers to. So if you're in government and you're in the ruling party, you're from the region, you should help your government to succeed by ensuring that the programs of the government, they are duly implemented. NDDC has been shrouded as one corrupt entity that they use that outfits to compensate politicians. And I'm happy that Mr. President was proactive in addressing that issue. But there must be transparency in that process, and people must be held responsible. They must be compelled to face the wrath of the law so that it will serve as deterrent. That others will not see the region and other parts of the country as places that, because they are involved in political parties, they can. It is their rights to benefit and frustrate the government.
Sorry to interrupt you. We'll be rounding this up shortly now. We have less than a minute.
Okay.
But this group, this Coast Guard, do you have a name for it already? We know Amotekun, we know Shege Kafasa. What are you thinking of? Operation what?
No, it is an initiative that we're selling.
It doesn't have a name yet.
No name.
Okay.
But it's just an
Thank you
initiative
very
we're selling
much.
to the
We've got to
government.
go now.
They should look in that direction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you.
you.